to Sustainable Solutions with Planet Aid, the podcast that explores sustainable solutions for the most pressing issues facing our planet and communities today. I'm Planet Aid's Communications Manager, Haley Chitty, and I'm going to turn it over to our host, Planet Aid's Communication and Content Specialist, Monica Johnson. I'll jump back in later and ask a few follow-up questions. Monica, take it away.
Well, thank you, Haley, and welcome to Sustainable Solutions with Planet Aid. I'm Monica Johnson, and I'm going to be your guide for this journey as we take challenging situations and try to simplify them. And it's also an opportunity for us to learn from incredible individuals and organizations at the forefront of developing and implementing sustainable solutions. Change is not only possible, but essential, and it begins with understanding. So today, we're going to be talking to Nate Hryn, founder of Acorn Hills Clothing Company. Nate, how are you?
I'm doing good, Monica and Haley. Thank you guys for having me on.
Oh, sure. We're very excited about having you on. Nate, your company is a sustainable clothing company, and there's a couple of ways that you're sustainable, but I want to talk to you a little bit about the reason why you formed Acorn Hills. You have a deep appreciation for outdoors and nature. So tell us a little bit about that. How did you develop that appreciation?
Yeah, so for those that are listening out here today, I'm 21 years old, so I grew up in Curwensville, Pennsylvania. So if no one really ever heard of Curwensville, we're about 45 minutes from Penn State University. And if you're familiar with Penn State University, it's very country, very like hilly. So that's kind of where the hill part of Acorn Hills comes from. But, growing up, I was a very avid outdoorsman. I didn't hunt or anything like that, but I was always hiking, always outside, whether it was playing baseball, growing up Little League, or just like visiting with friends, going to a local park and playing basketball. I'm always kind of engulfed myself around the outdoors. And when I kind of got in the COVID era of like 2019 to 2021, I guess in high school, I was always obsessed with this idea of looking good, like having fashion. And, I played golf and, a lot of times I would try to look better on the golf course than I ever did in school with my outfits and stuff. So I tried to combine the two. And during COVID, I had a little notebook and I thought, well, I'll write down ideas, some like almost like a journal exercise to kind of keep me sane during COVID. And one of the ideas I came up with was Acorn Hills, which is a combination of the two, which is outdoor activities and the kind of environmental aspect that I grew up with.
Okay. So you're a very nature loving person. So how did you connect that with wanting to provide a product for people who were similar to you?
Yeah, I thought, clothing, like I said before in a couple other podcasts I've been on, is a billion-dollar industry, and there's tons of brands and tons of different pieces of clothing and product ranges and retailers. And I mean, it just goes on and on and on. And, pollution and, environmental solutions and stuff is something that's never talked about within the clothing industry, even though that it's such a big impact. And I thought, well, there's other companies out there doing things for the environmental side, and there's obviously clothing companies, but really there's not a lot of them being combined. And I thought, well, this is kind of an elephant in the room. Why not combine the two and kind of cross pollinate, for lack of a better term,
Mhm.
two areas that don't really relate to each other that much, but also can impact each other directly.
Love the term cross pollinate.
Cross pollinate, I use it all the time. I use it all the
Yeah.
time.
Um, so tell us a little bit about your products. What makes them unique?
Yeah, so obviously, like you said in the beginning, I am a clothing company, but I try to use, recycled fabrics, recycled polyesters, cottons, to kind of limit on the textile type of things. So what makes this Acorn Hills is within the hang tag, the plantable seed paper tag. And for those that don't know what seed paper is it's a decomposing basically paste that when dried, it resembles kind of the texture of paper. And within that paper is seeds, more or less. And when the customer buys my product, they not only get a high quality product, and I can go into kind of that type of thing too about how our products are sourced and high quality, but also too they get the hang tag, which is made out of seed paper. So they can take that seed paper tag instead of just snipping a hang tag and throwing it away, ending up in a landfill. They would snip that tag and then they'd plant that seed paper tag and it would grow into wildflowers.
Wonderful. And I'm going to come back to that a little bit later, but You
Yeah.
know, when I first got on here, was talking to you about the fact that you just finished your finals, so you're no longer
Yeah.
a junior, you're a senior.
I'm a senior
Um,
now. Yeah, it seems crazy. Seems crazy.
yeah, so that's wonderful. So, meanwhile, you are running a company and you're currently a college student. What inspired you to start this business while you were in school? Because, some college students have an idea and they flesh it out and then, they wait until they graduate to kind of pursue it. So, why didn't you take that path?
Yeah, honestly, it's kind of simple, Monica, is I'll never, at least for me, I'll never be surrounded by so many different diverse people, different perspectives, whether it be students, from all different walks of life, or, faculty, professors. These people are all experts in what they do, whether it's law, supply chain, whatever it may be. These people have spent the most part of their career in this type of thing. And for me being a college student, I have access to all of that.
Yes, you do.
And, when I started Acorn Hills, I thought, well, if I'm going to fail, I might as well fail big with people around me who are going to be, experts in what they do. Because obviously, I don't know everything. I have to go learn and research and do a bunch of research before I even launch the company. So that's kind of why I started in college. I thought, well, I'll come out of college with a degree, regardless whether this is a good thing or not. So that's why I kind of chose to start it in college.
And I love the fact that, and I did listen to a podcast with you beforehand.
Oh, okay, yeah, cool.
I heard about this notebook that gives you a little bit of inspiration, and
Yep.
I love that for people who are really trying to pursue a dream. How important was that notebook?
That notebook was huge because, like I said, during COVID, I would journal more or less, journal ideas, kind of just essentially Acorn Hills was a very small business model in that notebook in 2020 in my bedroom when we were in lockdown. And then, I tabled it and I, took it with me to college. I thought, well, if I get some downtime, I'll get back into that notebook. And, fate would have it that freshman year, I had a little bit of downtime and I pulled out that notebook one day and I said, if I'm going to start this, I might as well start this now. Um, so yeah, that notebook was huge. It definitely changed my life a lot.
Very good. And so you are very um, intentional intentional about providing an opportunity for your customers to take part in helping to preserve the environment. You worked with, like you said, Botanical Paperworks, I believe it was, to
Yep.
provide these plantable clothing tags. Why was that so important to you? And before you answer that, I also want you to wrap into that Acorn Hills. Where did that name come from as well?
Yeah, so I'll do the Acorn Hills part first. Very simple. As I talked about earlier, from very rural PA, very hilly, very, um, I don't want to say mountain-esque, but if you're ever in this area, you know exactly what I mean. And
Mhm.
also, too, you're surrounded by so many oak trees that bear acorns. And in the fall and, towards the winter time when acorns all fall, you just go outside and you can't step, 10 feet without stepping on one. And I like to call it natural marketing or nature marketing, brand identity, because I don't think anyone, after they know my story and know the Acorn Hills story, will look at an acorn the same way ever again. And I think if I could associate that acorn with me and the company and the mission, I think that'll bring a smile to everyone's face when they see the acorns drop. Uh, and then, as far as kind of how I get the customer involved is, anyone can sit here and preach and say, this is what we do as a company. This is, charitable act we do, and then, sell the product. But when you get the customer involved and get them really like involved within the mission, have it with a genuine purpose, um, and show that it's more of a community driven thing than a clothing business. So the community's first. The community drives the clothing. Because ultimately, with a business, you want to make sales to keep it going. And without that community aspect, you're never going to get there. So it's kind of that's why I like to keep them involved for
Very good.
sure.
And is the tag a means of offsetting the impacts associated with like textile productions and manufacturing and things like that? Um, because I see that there's a lot of ways that you offset, even with your biodegradable packaging as well. So
Yeah,
is
correct.
hmm
Yeah, so obviously I don't know how much research you've done on textile pollution,
hmm
but just a load of laundry, a normal standard load of laundry that someone does can, give off hundreds of thousands of microplastics. And those microplastics, when put in the water supply, or just anywhere out in nature, can be very harmful. So obviously, yeah, to create clothing takes a little bit of an environmental impact. I'm not going to ever say that we're completely 100% sustainable because no one company is ever, no matter what they do. But
Correct.
my ideology was if I could give back more than what I'm taking and replacing, and leave the place better than what I found it, for lack of a better term, the better. Because not only, like you said, the biodegradable packaging is huge, the seed paper tag is huge, and then also too, we plant we plant a tree for every online order, and that's with the National Forest Foundation. So not only is the customer doing their part, I'm doing my part as the founder of, what do we do as a thank you to the customer for participating, and that is plant a seed, plant a sapling, with the National Forest Foundation, and that's in the national forest, all around the country. So those are like protected places that those saplings are going to grow and be cared for.
And so I know that you said that the seeds that you're planting are going to be wildflowers, which will
Yep.
be beautiful. In the feedback that you get from your customers, do you get feedback that tells you that they actually plant the clothing tags?
Oh yeah, for sure.
Mhm,
I don't know how close you've been following the story, but actually
mhm,
we just had a lady. She unfortunately she was diagnosed with stage 4 liver cancer,
mm.
and she was a friend of the brand for a long time since we started. And we sent her a bunch of clothing tags because that's what she liked to do. She liked to plant. She didn't even honestly. I don't think she cared so much about the clothing as she did the tag. So to kind of make her day and cheer her up, we sent her a bunch of tags, and she sends us pictures once in a while of her putting them in little terracotta pots.
Oh,
Especially
that's
during
lovely.
during during the spring and kind of transition from winter to springtime, they were inside, but now she transplanted them to outside. So even though she's going through a very rough time in her life, we're behind her every step of the way, and also trying to cheer her up too.
As consumers, uh, we can just head to the local nursery and grab some seeds. You know that,
Yeah.
and it wouldn't cost. It might cost a lot less than just buying, obviously, a shirt or
Oh
whatever it
yeah.
may be. Um, But why do you think that what you're doing as far as these plantable tags resonates so deeply with your audiences? And I love the story that you just, obviously provided, but why do you think that is so?
Yeah, I think truthfully, no matter I don't know what clothing you guys are wearing right now, but do you know where it comes from? Do you know what the purposes of that clothing company is? And
Right.
you may know, and that's great if you do, but for the general population, they don't.
Hmm.
And I think that when people go to buy clothing, it's something that people are always going to need. Grass is always going to grow, for lack of a better term. And I think that clothing people are always going to need clothing. So why not know where the clothing comes from, what the purpose is, what the mission is, and knowing that you're doing something good. Because our tagline line is "Look good, feel good, do good." And obviously, we're not the first people to ever use "Look good, feel good, do good" in that sense. But our do good is for the environment, not and for others, not just kind of for yourself.
Just to go off of what you just said, um, you know, you were you were raised in an environment where obviously there's a lot of uh, wonderful things to look at as far as in nature. So how does that resonate with you as far as when you think about what's going on in the environment today?
I think it's huge. Obviously, I think a lot of times growing up, I took it for granted because, like I said, very, very country area. But, when I first launched, a lot of my first sales were in, downtown Los Angeles. And I think those people never get to experience a lot of the country type of nature around them. And obviously, they can like venture outside the city, and after a while, they get to some sort of country esque place. But if they can take my seed tag and plant it and almost bring that sense to their home, is really where it resonates at.
Very good. Who's your typical customer? What kind of person typifies your customer base?
It's honestly anywhere. I've had customers from you know a little bit younger than me, 17, 18 years old, to like the lady I was telling you with cancer. She's about, I think, close to 80. So,
Wow.
so big range there. And, everyone always asks me, what's your ideal customer look like? Well, just someone that wants to make a change, or just someone that wants to, join the community. We're not biased in any different way. Um, so it's just someone that wants to join the mission.
So we consider what we do at Planet Aid, collecting donated textiles to decrease the impact at the landfills and also fund global development projects, we consider ourselves to be a sustainable solution. So likewise,
Right.
we believe that you are doing the same thing. But tell us, in your opinion, why do you think that Acorn Hills is a sustainable solution?
Yeah, because I mean, essentially, if you boil it down to a ratio, for every piece of clothing, we're doing almost 3 to 1, 3 to 1 sustainable. So that's the clothing tag, the biodegradable packaging, and the sapling. And for every piece of clothing, so you figure 3 to 1. So we're replacing 2 parts to 1 part at the end of the day. And after a while, that really compounds because in our first year, planting a seed or planting a tree for every order online site, we planted around 350 trees, and obviously
Um,
that's pretty good for just starting out. And on
it's
this year,
good.
we're on track to double that. And the program itself that we're a part of, they planted over like 5 million or something like that, which is obviously 350 is a very small number when it goes into 5 million. But if you have that number compounded, that's where sustainability really blossoms.
And you say that it's a small number, but one tree really does provide
Yeah,
a lot
correct.
of oxygen. So, obviously that's a huge impact when you say 350.
Yep.
So, what is the trajectory for Acorn Hills as a company?
Well, you know, no pun intended, they grow, obviously. Just with any good forest, with water and care and everything, it grows.
Hmm.
And obviously, if you would have told me a year ago that I would have been on the Weather Channel and on USA Today and, within different outlets and stuff, trying to bring this mission to everyone, I would have said you're nuts, Monica. But, um, who's to say that maybe a year from now it gets even bigger and bigger? And that's the hope. But, a lot of times too, I gotta think of them. I'm only 21. The sky's truly the limit, and I think with a genuine purpose, that it truly is the limit. So the real answer is I don't know. Um, I think it's only up from here, but it's hard to give you a goal to hit because I really don't have one.
Right. Well, I'm sure you'll write it in your notebook.
Yeah, it's probably in there. It's in there somewhere, I'm sure.
So my last question to you right now is even if just thinking about the fact that even if you're not looking to be an example, you obviously are absolutely going to inspire um, and encourage aspiring entrepreneurs, younger and older, to consider their eco footprint from the beginning of planning their business. So is that a comfortable seat for you as far as just like being some kind of a role model to people as far as environmentally, sustainably?
Yeah, I think so. I've always been taught, when you receive recognition, it's best to pass it on to someone beyond you, and throughout this whole journey, I couldn't able to do half of what I do if it wasn't for my professors, my family and friends, support, people like you guys having me on the podcast. And you're just as much part of this mission as I am. So if I'm a role model, then I'm taking everyone else with me. That's how it's gonna work.
Very good. And I love the shirt. As we
Oh,
see your
yeah,
is that
thank
one
you,
of your
thank you.
golf shirts?
Yeah, this is one of my polos or
Okay,
pullovers, I guess. So,
very good. Okay, and I'm just going to turn it over to Haley because I'm sure he has some questions for you as well.
yeah,
Always. I first, to see younger generation really tackling this head on is really encouraging. I know we talk about a lot of real serious challenges, and so to see, you taking these steps to sort of modernize the fashion industry and clothing is very. I take a lot of it's encouraging for me. So first of all, I just put that out there. Um, the first thing, I think your model is actually very similar to Planet AIDS in terms of sustainability, because what we really try to do is empower our donors to take small steps, and then taken together that has a huge impact. So I'm just seeing that how easy you make it for customers to have a positive impact, and I think it's just an important aspect of what you're doing there. Um, what I got. kind of wondering what you saw in the current clothing manufacturing industry that really sparked your interest to make it more sustainable. If there's two or three things that you saw that sort of really kind of irked
Yeah,
you or motivated you.
you know, obviously the main golden calf for sure is the piece of plastic hang tag. If you go to every retailer or whatever, there's a little piece of like white plastic. It's almost, you know, transparent. You almost
Right.
miss it half the time. That hooks onto the clothing and the uh, tag that is attached to. And usually that tag is a piece of either really like glossed up cardboard or it's a piece of plastic. And like I said before, if you take all those clothing pieces, ranges, brands, companies, and multiply that, that's billions and billions and billions and billions of those pieces of plastic. Um, and that was just kind of something that always like, resonated with me is, well, why isn't anyone talking about that? It's very logical thinking. It's not reinventing the wheel, just kind of changing how the wheel turns, more or less. And that was kind of something I really wanted to tackle. I kind of worked backwards as I saw a problem and I thought, okay, well, how can I help? And then it just so happened to be that it aligned with my passions, and that's what I stuck with.
Seems like a really tangible kind of low-hanging fruit. It seems like other fashion brands could do something similar that would not cost too much and make a big difference when you multiply it to scale. Are there other factors that you think fashion companies could learn from you or clothing manufacturers could learn from you in terms of very easy, low-hanging fruit to make their products more sustainable?
Yeah, I mean, Haley, you're saying about low, easy hanging fruit. Obviously, I keep my prices very, very competitive. And a lot of times doing the sustainability does cost money to do because, it is, you're paying for a service, you're paying for, um, really you're paying for something good rather than trying to make something very expensive and gouge the customer. And what do you get out of it at the end of the day? More plastic. And I think that's kind of where a lot of companies, bigger companies, are lacking a little bit. And that's not saying that they don't offer great products, but I don't know if they really get the people involved as much, get the customers involved as much, and create the community. So I think as far as a quick fix, if you have that community built, when someone orders from me, they know that I'm going to handle it or package it up, and they know the owner and they know the founder. And I think that's something, this personability, is huge as well.
What do you see as like the biggest challenges for larger manufacturers, to what are the textile manufacturing problems that are going to take, a little bit more effort to really get our handles on and make it more sustainable?
Yeah, I think it comes down to cost again. A roll of fabric that might cost you X number of dollars as compared to an eco-friendly roll of fabric that's recycled and, less pollution oriented, is going to cost a lot more. If you're the CFO of a company, that's a tough decision you have to make.
Definitely. And it sounds like the approach is to really inform the customers of that added value.
Yeah,
Um,
I think so because, it seems like an easy fix that a bigger company would go for the eco-friendly rule. But when you do that, there are many employees that, their jobs are affected, supply chains affected. So yes, it's very simple to do, but there's a lot of inner workings that affect a lot of people. Could be negatively if a company chooses to up their prices on everything, and then their employees and the people that work for the company, then you start bartering on human services and time. So that's kind of a big snag. Um, like it is kind of nice that it's just me, and once in a while my mom will help me pack some orders. Uh, so it's just the two of us more or less. So it doesn't really cause that much of a trickle down effect. But as I scale up, it's nice that I can build up with that effect rather than have to build down with it.
it sounds like one of the challenges for the textile manufacturing industry is just changing direction. They
Yep.
sort of, and so a nice thing is since you started something new, you didn't have all these sort of legacy procedures and policies that you kind of had to follow. You got to start from scratch.
Yep.
And do you get a sense that it's easier to stay sustainable as a small company? Do you worry as you grow and scale up that it will be more difficult, or vice versa? Is the opposite true?
Yeah, I think, like you said, 20 years ago, you started a clothing company. No one really talked about pollution, and these legacies were built, and these American dream stories were built with entrepreneurs, and that is kudos to them. They worked their tails off and everything, and I'm not taking anything away from them. But now this new generation that's educated on it, um, especially that's including myself and hopefully my customers. This new kind of generation, that if they start this way and kind of scale up, I don't think it'd be much of a problem. But obviously, you don't know until it happens. As an entrepreneur, not only do I have to be kind of um, stubborn and serious, but I also have to be very flexible at times too.
Mm.
And that flexibility and sustainability need to align with each other for me to grow.
Nate, where can we find your clothing?
Yeah. You can head to my website. It's www.acornhillsco.com. And then I'm also on Instagram, Monica, where we've talked. It's at acorn.hills.
Right. And I want to thank you for showing me about collaborating. That was a great
Yeah,
that was a great
that's
find for
okay.
me.
I
See, the younger generation teaching the older generation. So
it was a very good post for both of us, I think.
Yeah, maybe just one last one to kind of wrap up.
Yeah.
I'm just, what we see from our side is this just explosion of fast fashion and disposable clothing, basically, wear once and toss out. And so, we're trying from the secondhand perspective to rectify that. But I'm just wondering, have you, through your marketing and, how do you communicate the value of the sustainable clothes to hopefully start to change attitudes about fast fashion? Are you seeing that start to happen? Are there concerns about fast fashion?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I like to say there's three things you can pick. You can pick, cheap, fast, good, and you can only pick two of them, two out of three, all of them. So if you want something cheap and fast, it's probably not going to be good. If you want something, good, it's not going to be cheap and fast, more or less. Um, so for me, I did probably like a year and a half before launched in 2023, January 1st. I did about a year of research um, on clothing, on the environment, and on suppliers as well, because a lot of these suppliers don't share the same time zone as me, and that can be tough. Having a final at 8 a.m. and having to get on a contract call at 2 a.m. can be tough. Um, but also too, that's where it really is worth it, because I could easily go up the road and say, hey, at the t-shirt shop, hey, I want to slap a logo on this and say, well, we're a sustainable company. That'd be very simple for me to do. But if I go out of my way and find these big name suppliers that are working with other huge corporation companies, I'm bringing that type of apparel on a smaller scale with the sustainability aspect. So that's kind of where I really drive that home, is look at what these other companies are doing, and I'm doing the same thing for less price. It's going to be more convenient for you, and you get to help out too. So not only is the ratio 3-to-1 on my end for sustainability, it's also 3-to-1 on the customer's end as well.
That's great. All right, I think that's about what I have.
all right. Well, thank you, Nate, for joining us. We really loved having you on, and maybe we can kind of get a progress report a little later on
Yeah, of course. You
to
let me
see
know.
where you are. I mean, it's big senior year and all that, so who knows what will
Yeah,
happen
I'll be
after senior
busy.
year.
Yeah.
So thank you for joining us for this episode of Sustainable Solutions with Planet Aid. And we hope you have been inspired by the ideas that we've explored today. And we encourage you to search for sustainable solutions that you can pursue and that you can be a good steward in your neck of the woods and beyond. Haley?
That's right. We're all about taking small steps together to make big difference. So thank you, Monica. And a few reminders to our listeners on the way out. If you want to stay connected and informed about the latest sustainable solutions, don't forget to subscribe. And please share it with your friends, family, and colleagues. Together, we can make a big difference. All right. Thanks, y'all.